Code Gray. Code Gray in room 1201. Code Gray is used for only extremely combative or violent patients in the emergency room. The psych ward was on the far north end of the ER. Being the only Tier 1 trauma center for 100 miles, we'd been short-staffed for months from the pandemic. Security was light on the overnight shift. There was no immediate response from security, and I knew it would take time for them to get this far. So hearing the alarm, I rushed down the hall and saw our psychiatric nurse, Dawn, getting tossed to the ground. She was screaming for help as the patient started pulling her hair and slamming her head to the floor. Tom Landon, another ER doc, broadsided me as he came around the corner. He was following the screams. I fell into the wall, but I was back on my feet in an instant. Adrenaline was pumping full throttle as I watched Tom drop his shoulder into the patient. He bounded off and hit a 6-foot mobile supply cabinet. The sound of an explosion railed down the corridor as the cabinet fell and the contents flooded the hall. Dawn tried to fight back. She had her hands pulling at his eyes. He just continued to hurt her though. I looked and she reached out one hand and said, Ryan, please help me. With one final blow, she went limp. After seeing Tom bounce off, I lunged forward with all my energy, and my right foot connected and I heard his neck snap. He dropped to the ground motionless. I took a step back and felt a shivering pain run up my body. I had broken almost every bone in my foot and dislocated my ankle. I watched as 3 security guards jumped over Dawn and started pounding away at the man with everything they had. They kept hitting him over and over and over. They involuntarily started to scream as they beat him. There seemed to be no end to their rage. They wanted evil to lose today. Stop, Dr. Landon yelled as he came to his feet. Stop. Everyone was in shock as silence took over for just one moment. I looked around and no one moved. All I saw were blank stares. Other nurses, doctors, and staff arrived, and I saw tears starting to flow, and their hands clasped to their faces. The security guards were sucking breath as blood-soaked sweat ran down their bodies. I turned and looked towards Dawn, and what I saw brought a deep and instant sadness. Her head was turned, and she was looking directly at me. A large pool of blood was pouring out of the back of her head. Some small drops of fluid rolled out of her eyes and dripped onto the floor. I felt 2 large hands grasp me under the shoulders as they pulled me into a room. My eyes were glued to Dawn's face as they lifted her onto the gurney. As they pulled me into the room, I looked and I saw no sign of life. It felt as if my life was being drawn out of me. I grabbed the door to hold myself from being pulled into the room. With one last look, she blinked.